So my name's Nylah. I got started in kind of experiential education a long time ago, back when I was a summer camp counselor at the Orlando Science Center. And I had not thought that that was going to be a career of mine. I was much more focused on going into the research side of biology. So going into labs and getting onto fellowships and kind of participating in that way. But then that experience kind of opened my eyes to I can still make a difference, just in a different way than I had planned. So I decided to embrace it, because one of the things that I've definitely learned, especially over this past year, is that when something comes into your world, instead of kind of reacting in a negative way, see if you can work with it and adapt and kind of mold it into your life. And maybe, hopefully, your life will get better as a result of that. So I kind of took that in stride and then just kind of rolled with it. Everything that happened kind of kept feeling like I was doing the right thing. I was in the right spot. I was meeting the right people. I felt like I'd kind of found what I was supposed to do, like my calling. So it wasn't always like that. There were some rough patches where, the financial part didn't quite meet the part of me wanting to do this for my life. So I had to make some tough choices of whether I wanted to chase the money and the financial stability that that could bring, or really love what I did with my life. And so I decided to focus on that way, or in that way of making my life something that I loved to do every single day. So the Science Center kind of opened my eyes to that. And then I went to Scotland. I had the opportunity to go. It's been about 2 years now that I went there to get my master's degree. I got it in science communication and public engagement. And it's been an awesome journey to kind of go from one side of the country, or one side of the world really, here, and see how we do communication and science and how we value experience over just being able to memorize facts and regurgitate them. Can you actually do something with all this information? And then going to the other side of the world in the United Kingdom and seeing how they did it, and being able to compare the two, and then take what I really liked that they did that we could maybe get better at doing here. And then after I finished the program, I had the opportunity to travel around the world. And so I took it because I figured, when else was this going to happen? And I used that also to help me, because it made me a lot more aware of wildlife conservation as a whole. I didn't realize how many countries don't actually get the voice that they need for animals all over the world. But then also just for children in general, their education. In some countries, it was like they wanted children, and they valued their experience that they got. And then in other countries, they were still very kind of in the old traditional way of thinking. So it was nice to be able to see the differences and feel a lot more better about, okay, experiential education is the right thing to do. And how can we do it better based off of how everyone else is doing it well? So I came back, and then COVID happened. No one had expected COVID, obviously, and neither had I. So it kind of put a crimp in my plans about where I was going to get to, kind of where I am now. I had planned to go into the field that I'd spent so much time and energy on. And I had a very specific way of how I was going to do it. And when I came back, COVID provided the opportunity for me to kind of take a minute and think, okay, this is not going the way that I had planned. So I either have to adapt and make it work, or sink. And if anything, being in education and experience, but also just nature, right? If you don't figure out a way, nature will just take over. So I figured I was going to make it work and not really like stay rigid, more just kind of try and go with the flow and see what I could make out of it. And I found a really good niche. A lot of children were now being homeschooled, and their parents were kind of like, I don't know what to do. Science is this huge field, and a lot of people are intimidated by it. And rightly so. It does have a lot of things in it that are confusing or hard to understand, and things are changing all the time as we make new discoveries. So the world is always in flux, and it's hard. I get it, to kind of feel confident when you're teaching someone younger. I don't want to mess it up, right? I don't want to teach them the wrong thing, because it's kind of part of their foundation. So I found that I could take my experience and kind of translate it into an opportunity to make parents see how experiential education could be really, really beneficial. And
Hmm.
still figuring out how to do it in COVID. At first, I did a lot of online classes, and then I realized that I have an awesome classroom we kind of do here in our backyards.
Yeah.
And so now I have a traveling science classroom basically in the back of my car, and I'll bring all the science stuff to you, and we'll
Mhm.
just use your backyard as our classroom.
Right.
And it's worked amazingly well. I'm lucky that I live in Florida with our huge amount of biodiversity. It is
Sure.
not hard to go outside and find all kinds of animals. And a lot of things that you were saying earlier, people are going outside more. Like, they don't realize how many things are actually back there in your
Exactly.
backyard. And
Yeah.
like, it's right there. And it's
Yep.
really, really
Yeah.
cool. Um,
So you're having like these little backyard safaris essentially, right? Where you're kind of
yeah,
exploring the ecosystem. That's cool.
basically, yeah. And we do it on a
Something to keep
regular
you away.
basis. So now we go to a local park where we've been able to watch over the year the progression of the natural animals and
Hmm.
their cycles that they go through. Some
Right.
days the park is packed of animals, and some days we don't hear or see a peep.
Right.
So it's awesome for them to also, every day we get to kind of see the real world. Like, what
Hmm.
does it actually look like when you're doing this on a regular basis?
Sure. Sure.
And prepping them with the real world skills and experiences that they'll actually need. So a lot of that has to do with being creative, thinking outside the box when you're solving problems,
Hmm.
collaborating with your peers and people that you might not
Of
always get
course.
to go along with,
Right.
but you have to figure it out, so you do. Critical thinking, always. Just kind of when you're in a situation with live animals or not, you have to be able to think on your feet and
Yeah.
think in a way that like think in a way that keeps you alive
Right.
basically, so always have that kind of in mind. So it's been awesome. I've been able to use the backyard as my classroom, and it's
Hmm.
been
So cool.
amazing. I don't think without the pandemic I would have thought of bringing the classroom to people. I always
Right.
thought they had to come to it. So
Hmm.
this has given me an opportunity to kind of take a different perspective on teaching and
Right.
what it means to kind of give an experience to a child that's impactful and memorable and meaningful to them.
Sure. Sure. Now, do you typically work with like the same group of kids, or do you kind of rotate based on the day, or how does that process kind of play out?
I have three. I call them my science kids. They've been in my class for since the beginning of the fall, actually. I've
Okay.
had some new students come in. Some have left. Their parents have decided to take them back to school, like
Mhm.
because of the social aspect.
Sure.
We do have some socialization, but there's only 4 students, so that's
Sure.
really small, and you can only get so much.
Sure.
But then I'm also welcome to kids who, if you just want to drop in for the
Oh, because I
day,
just
like
pop in
you
for the day, right? Yeah, absolutely.
need something like you need a boost in your science curriculum, your kid just needs to go outdoors, you just need them to do something different.
Hmm.
So yeah, join along. It's an
That's really
awesome
cool.
experience, and it's kind of like they're in their they become kind of like a wildlife biologist almost, like
Gosh,
a little
yeah,
junior one.
absolutely.
And it's really cool. And then the awesome part is being able to see the parents and make the parents
Hmm.
realize that their kids are getting a really awesome experience. And there's something so powerful about exploring outdoors that I think kind of got missed in some of the COVID and the pandemic with everyone going digital. Like, they
Right.
forgot that outdoors is kind of something a lot of people take for granted. So I feel like this is an awesome opportunity for me to kind of share the natural love that I have of nature with
Right.
everyone, and then
Right.
get to see the parents keep that and instill that in their kids and kind of have those journeys together. That's really awesome and
Right.
very powerful for sure.
It's interesting because you kind of straddle, we talk all the time as educators, right? Formal education versus informal education. And
Yeah.
it feels like you really do play both sides of the fence, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure you kind of teach towards, SOLs, right? You have different
Mhm.
standards that you're trying to teach to, but it's also very hands-on, it's very experiential, and it's very pop-up demo based, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There will be some days when I have a plan of all the activities we're going to do.
Sure.
And that happens to be the day that we find, an awesome brown water snake, or we get to see, we caught some fish, or there's a raccoon that happens to be there, or there's eagles and we get to see their nest, or, all these other things pop up. So it's definitely, I've learned how to take any moment that happens and kind of
Hmm.
transform it
Teach to the
into
moment.
a teaching
That's cool.
moment. And there's no moment that I've found yet where like I haven't wanted to say something sciency, and sometimes I have to tamp it down a little. Like, okay, let's take
Hmm.
a break, a break from
Right.
all science connections for a second. I'm just
Sure.
like, you guys enjoy nature. But yeah, taking every single moment to make that
Hmm.
connection, just boost it really, like
Yeah.
the impact level, and then also what they're getting out of it. And that's part of being an experiential educator is making the connections with your kids to their own lives. So it's not just the information and then them storing it away in their brain for later. It's no, use it now. How does that connect to what you're doing now? And how does it, can you practice doing that yourself and kind of making those connections a little bit easier for them to do as well?
Right, right. Yeah. Taking any sort of learning and bringing it inside their bubble is pretty critical, right? I mean, that's the experiential method, and that's how you have long-term connections made. So it's
Absolutely.
awesome to see that that's the kind of
Yeah.
route you guys are pursuing.
Yeah.
Very
Definitely.
cool. Very cool. So, okay, so we're doing these, like kind of like little learning pods, right? I think that's the phrase that's been coined over the past year.
Yeah.
Where do we see this going, right? Post pandemic, is this something where you think experiential education could start to siphon kids, you maybe away from more formal structured education, or is this sort of an add-on, maybe like a post, post day sort of program? How do you think this kind of fits?
I think honestly, it could be so it could be both. And I think
Right.
I like the both answer because
Hmm.
it's adaptable and it fits everybody. So everyone in whatever moment they're in now, you have different needs. And so it's awesome if you can meet the needs of people where they are at that moment because that will mean more than trying to drag them to where you are. You
Sure.
just meet them where they're
Sure.
at. And so for this kind of the learning pods, I think it could be something that could definitely supplement or support kids who
Hmm.
are already in kind of a science curriculum. Especially in Florida, a lot of our teachers teach to the tests. And so that's great because you get all that subject matter, but
Right.
then the impact of it's kind of lost on you. So it
Hmm.
would be awesome to see this as a partnership with a lot of schools and their curriculum and how they're
Right.
developing all this stuff. And then having it to where the teachers could learn how to do it on their own in their classroom. So part of I had done that at the Science Center was taking STEM curriculum and looking at what the teachers are already doing and
Hmm.
saying, oh, look, you're already doing a lot of this. You just kind
Right.
of have to tweak some of this stuff. So it would be awesome too if I could kind of be the person who makes it so it doesn't feel like you have to adapt everything. You can probably
Right.
just tweak a few things and then
Hmm.
transform the classroom that you have now into this
Sure.
experiential education environment.
Right.
It's not as hard as people think. I think it's intimidating. It does
It
seem like
is.
a
It
little
is.
overwhelming and a lot of stuff like, oh, and again, I don't want to mess up, but it's definitely something I think will mean more. And I think people are starting to realize that real world experiences matter more long term
Right.
and short term. So, like in the moment, you're just trying to get stuff done. And I get that you're trying to check things off lists or to do lists or
Sure.
task lists and all that stuff. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the energy that you're putting into what you're doing now will impact you and make a difference and still benefit you long term. So, experiential education has that kind of from the roots up kind of
Yeah.
experience for children. And
Right.
so, investing in making these moments more of their everyday life, I
Hmm.
think will have longer impacts later on that are extremely beneficial because these are going to be the problem solvers of tomorrow. So we need to
Of
make them
course.
innovative, make them feel empowered, inspired, and then make them feel educated so that they have the answers to go
Right.
solve all the problems that we've kind of created for them.
It's so funny. Like most of what you just said right there, the key phrases they pop out from a school that we've talked about in the past, the Linden Waldorf School, which is an outdoor facility-based school, right?
Yeah.
So I'll put that link up here for everyone to check out that video. But it's really cool to see how those concepts, right, can bleed into formal education, right? And
Mhm.
if you just have teachers that are empowered and enabled to transform their classrooms, you don't have to make these big sweeping overhaul systemic changes, which we know are so difficult to get through
Yeah.
formal education systems,
They
right?
are. They
The
are.
sort of bureaucracy that can pop up there. Informal educators have a lot more leeway and breadth of change that they can make for any small program or any large term institution-wide curriculum, right? So it's really cool for you to take these concepts and provide sort of a scaffolding for them, right?
Yeah.
And then be able to kind of share them with formal education. I think that's a really cool concept and definitely something I see progressing.
Yeah.
Your background science, right? So
Yeah.
Nylah may not teach you all about history or English or math, right? But there's those other core subjects that experiential learning can be applied to, right? That's why it has a place in my heart, is because it fits this whole wide range
Yeah,
of different topics that it can really support. So I think
absolutely.
that would be exciting to see moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely an interdisciplinary
Of course.
avenue or almost like method you could do,
Mhm.
almost like pedagogy, but not quite to that same level of
Right.
like because when you say that, it makes you think of, you know, back to the formal side of it. And
Sure.
it's not
Sure.
necessarily that, but it definitely is a really it's an approach that you can use and have
Right.
it influence a lot of stuff that you do, but they're all still connected. Yeah, just like you said.
And a lot of times people think that you can't have SOLs, you can't have standards of learning interwoven into experiential education, right? A lot of times it can really help those, like you said, not just teach the test, but also become part of a lifelong discipline, right?
Mhm.
A lifelong understanding of the topic, that's really impactful, and that's what's great about it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fantastic where we're at now, right? So where do you see sort of, yourself moving forward? Do you see yourself, expanding the bubble here, bringing in more kids in the future, or how do you think, your skill sets that you've learned as a frontline educator could benefit other people trying to fill, a similar niche that you've got in, Florida, right? If there's somebody in California, what skill sets might you think would be beneficial to them to kind of replicate what you're doing?
Ah, that's a big question. I've always wanted to do a lot of things. So I think for me, it's definitely being kind of like a Jane of all trades, where I have the ability to not only show people how to do it by actually doing it myself because I love teaching. There's, you know, I'm having a bad day and I go to my classroom and it's just in 5 minutes, I've forgotten everything that was bothering me that
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah.
So for me, it's, I cannot just teach other people how to do it. Like I also want to do it and provide
Right.
that resource for people. I think I would start getting more into making kind of like supplemental curriculum packages
Sure.
or opportunities for people to pick and choose of things where you can use, you know, if you're learning about some specific science topic, but you're not too sure how to make it an experiential education environment
Right.
or
Right.
experience. I'll help you out. Let's tag team it, or
Mhm.
here's something that I've used before and try it with your classroom. And I think it would work really well. I think for me, I'd love to inspire other educators to maybe think outside the box a little bit more. So make it so that you're not stuck in the cookie cutter world of having to just copy and paste stuff, but you can actually make it into something that makes it more impactful and meaningful for your kids.
Right.
I would love to also grow my classroom. If I could have a classroom of like 30 kids every
Sure.
single day, that would be amazing.
Right.
But I also know that having kids in person and having them virtually, it is still an impactful experience, but it's different. So I think I would rather inspire teachers to do what I'm doing just where they are.
Sure.
Use the natural resources in your own environment to make this a better experience for everybody. And I mean, I would love to be able to go to you in person and be like, okay, here, let me like walk you
Right.
through this and do like a crash course in this.
Sure. Sure.
But with the pandemic and all that, I think I'm working more on making my digital resources a little bit more
Accessible.
impactful, but also successful. Yeah, and then accessible for
Yeah.
everybody so that they can find something that works for them where they're not intimidated and they actually feel
Right.
inspired and empowered to use this education to their advantage.
Right. And
I
then
think,
tweak that along the way, right? So you
yeah,
take in materials from other people. That's what all educators
absolutely.
do. We tweak it to fit our needs, and they can
Mhm.
tweak yours to fit their needs, right?
Yeah, it's
That's really
really
cool.
kind of like this web of interconnected teaching strategies and experiences and strategies, and it's never that someone's doing it right and wrong, it's just you're doing it in a way that fits where you are.
Sure.
And I think it's really powerful to look at it and use all those perspectives to make what you're doing better, because learning from everybody is kind of how you get better
Right.
in essence.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. So you've obviously had, a big successful year over the past year, and you've kind of found your niche and found where you're happy, right? And success is measured in a million different ways, right? But
Yeah.
you're confident, you're excited about what's happening, and I can just see it's palpable, right? That energy is there. So I guess we've kind of looked forward to the future, right? So I just want to take a quick second step back, right? How did you get to where you are? And I think most importantly, I'd love to zone in on who helped you get to where you are, right? Is there a previous mentor or a role model or somebody that you aspired to be that kind of helped, guide you down this path?
I think I had a few people who kind of helped keep me motivated and then also kept me kind of aware of, kind of like you said, like what was my goal? Where did I want to go? What did I see myself actually doing? And then did I love doing it? That was
Yeah,
always a really big thing. Everyone was
absolutely.
encouraging me to find something that you loved to do because at the end of the day, you're going to be doing it for the majority of your time. So you might as well enjoy
This is
it.
true.
I think a big person who had an impact in kind of how I saw my education and my career kind of helping each other a little bit more because I thought once I got my bachelor's degree, that was kind of it. I didn't want to do anymore.
Right.
And then my old boss at the Science Center, Heather Norton, encouraged me to kind of think outside the box and be like, well, what if you went for a master's degree in what you love doing and
Right.
get a little bit more academic basis for kind of what you want to do and where you want to go, and then network in that area as well because the academic side has a huge number of people and systems and all kinds
Yeah.
of different avenues that you can go down that can also boost what you do in the real world as
Sure.
well. So she kind of opened the door, and I was like, oh, yeah, I really like that idea. Okay.
Right.
Um, and then in my personal life, I've just always loved wildlife and animals. The best vacation I've ever gone on was when I saved a sea turtle from red tide poisoning.
Wow.
And ever since then, I just kind of was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I don't
Mhm.
want to just do it for myself, but I want to make other people feel what I feel right now about saving animals and saving the earth that we all take for granted all of the
Right.
time. And I think on Earth Day, I feel special to being able to kind of give a little bit more attention to this
Sure.
area that we need a lot more love and care and
Right.
policy and enforcement and holding people accountable to making sure that they understand that their actions do make a difference and they can every little thing makes a difference in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely.
So I kind of was able to combine my science communication aspect of being able to communicate these kind of tough science topics to people. And then the public engagement aspect of it, where I got to actually talk about stuff with people and make them care. And
Right.
now I've kind of found a niche where I can educate and inspire and empower the younger generations to
Mhm.
actually care about the earth and make it a priority for them.
Right.
And so the fact that I've kind of molded my personal passions and my professional missions into one awesome little soup, I feel very, very proud. I think another group of people who've helped me out are my friends and family. There were a lot of times, especially when I was not too sure that I wanted to do this because the lack of money, yeah, I could go and put more effort into making more money, but is that actually going to be worth it at the end of the day? And they kind of helped remind me like, why do you actually want to do this? What's your motivation when it gets hard? And it does get hard. I mean, running a business on your own, it's not easy, and
It's not.
it's there are a lot of times when it's like, it'd be so much easier to work for somebody who's got everything else figured out.
Right.
But then at the
Clock
same
in,
time,
clock out sort of thing.
yeah.
Mhm.
But at the same time, then you sacrifice this opportunity to really take this into your own hands to make a difference in how you
Right.
want to do it. And I haven't wanted to let that go yet. So my friends and family have definitely been there to remind me of why this is important and why I should stick to it. And I think the opportunities that Heather gave me at the Science Center, people taking people taking risks on you and
Yeah.
making an investment in who you are because they saw something.
Right.
I think that's been amazing. And, not everybody sees it. Trying to get a job and saying, you don't have enough experience, or we want someone with a little bit more years under their belt, or a little bit more of this or that. It can be hard to feel like you can find a spot. So I think part of it too is just don't give up. There's something out there for you, and you just have to wait and you'll find it.
Absolutely. Wow, Nyla, that was just a perfect wrap up, a perfect sentiment. I don't think we could possibly top a sort of outro than that. I'm really excited to see where you're going to continue to go. And I have no doubt that, you may have had those mentors along the way, but the kids that you're molding and shaping in your learning pod now, they're going to be looking at you as sort of a resource like that moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Excited
appreciate
to
it.
see, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to see what the next opportunity brings. I'm ready. I'm ready
Yeah.
to see what happens next.